Actually, I'm gonna go buy some.
Hey, I don't
Be right
think
back.
so. This guy's another level, but I'm an
Drop your
adult.
weapons. You asked
But
for it.
it is true. I think about all the shit. My girlfriend, she's some asshole like this. And the worst part is I probably wouldn't like it. I'd probably be like, dude, we can be boys. Anyways, I just thought that was so funny.
Closing in.
Dog.
Number two, listen, married people, we put in our limits too. In 2025, we need y'all to stop downplaying marriage. Y'all don't look this like marriage so hard. Listen, I'm trying to travel by myself like you. Y'all don't look this like no, actually, and we need y'all to encourage us and tell us the good side of marriage, not all of this rigmarole.
So, my boy just said rigmarole. How do you say it?
So sorry.
What does that mean? Jibber jabber? Nonsense or something? Oh, I got some word. I'm just put off rigmarole.
Bye.
Okay, it's Rigmarole. My spelling is right off. It is a long, rambling story or statement. She went into a long rigmarole about the different jobs she's in. Okay, well, I guess this whole YouTube
Dancing in the wind.
but that's the point of this. I feel like, at least for me and my friends, most of us just want one chick, just chill. That's it. I don't want to do that part.
Up and away.
Who else? It's exhausting. Fonts. Have you tried? I'm serious. I couldn't even imagine dating apps. Never even tried them. I was like, that is just way too much. I tried, what's that thing they call it, a roster? I tried that years ago. God. Welcome to the show, everybody. We continue to cover the explosion in egg prices, one of the foremost and most important prominent promises that the current Trump-Vance administration made during the campaign was that grocery prices would go down on day one, January 20th, but let's give you back. That egg prices would go down. And the opposite is taking place. And in fact, it seems the supply chain problems didn't just follow Donald Trump around like those STDs he avoided, which were Vietnam or something like that whole thing. This is very another one of these overpromise and how people could believe. Let me tell you what's going on in the local fraction. Egg prices started at 6.30 per dozen when Donald Trump became president of the United States. Now, within those first 10 days of Trump's presidency, egg prices went to 7.09. That was an increase of about 50%. That initial promise of where the price not happen. This then led to the start of this one, a new all forever record high egg price of 7.48. About that. Well, did egg prices reverse? They did not.
There is a fracture within the administration. You have the legalists like Russ Vogt and his deputy, who apparently was in that famous painting with Harlan Crow and Clarence Thomas, who want a legal challenge to the Impoundment Control Act and an overturn of Train v. New York, the 1974 Supreme Court ruling that says the administration can't not spend what Congress appropriates. When we spoke yesterday to Gil Duran, who's been writing about the tech bro side of this equation, the Curtis Yarvin, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel fusion with the Russell Vogt Heritage Foundation people. They had some conference in September, and they sort of fused their agendas, but there's still this sort of like ethos that's different. You got the legalists who want to overturn these laws so that the president has the ability to unilaterally cut spending he doesn't like. And then you have the tech bros who are just like, let's just ignore the laws. And you can
The
see
best rattan furniture is made from
them
strands that are
represented
smooth,
in our
thin,
media
and strong like
in
silk.
different ways. Here's
Furniture
Russ
like
Vogt
that
on
can be
the
just
Barry
as precious
Kudlow,
as a
old
silver
school
family
Republican,
heirloom. That's no
who,
exaggeration.
Reagan era, who also worked in the last Trump administration, but it became a little bit too high pressure, which makes it sometimes you don't want to, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It can force you to fall into bad habits. Okay, let's just play this clip.
These judges are getting silly. I don't know how and when this is going to be resolved, but there's certain, it's a preposterous notion that political appointees can't see it, and that says it's preposterous that outsiders or now...
I feel I would be remiss if I didn't say that sometimes, just even doing a TV show can be high pressure. Go ahead.
Says it's preposterous that outsiders or now employees of the government like Elon Musk can't do their job and search for fraud. I do not understand this, and I think a lot of people are scratching their heads, Russ.
It defies common sense, it defies the Constitution, but the reality is this has been a key pillar of the Democrats' administrative state, and one of their principles is that career individuals and not political appointees are the ones that they want to rely on making decisions and shielding those of us who are political appointees from the actual information that we need to make decisions based on what the president would do if he was in our shoes. And you can't do that if you don't have access to the information and you don't have the tools at your disposal to make sure everything's going across your desk that you need to know to be a sound representative of the president.
Yeah, I mean, it seems
Okay. Now, what that gobbledygook tells me, they're sort of pretending it's an audit, but Russell Vogt is getting dragged into this, like, let's just say it's an audit and stall, and it's, they don't. You're getting a little bit lost. You've lost the narrative.
Steady as stone.
And it's also in addition that, like, now they're turning to sort of a whine about it, now they're sort of we're not obligated to this to the courts. Remember, they started this the other day, and we must have gotten pushback from places, and I don't know where it is.
Drop your weapons.
Here's Dan Bongino. Bongino also interesting. We just heard from Milo Yiannopoulos on the Hulu show that right-wingers regularly got paid millions of dollars by billionaire benefactors to buy news until they made it. The site specifically, Ben Shapiro, having done this. And Dan Bongino had the same trajectory. He's out of nowhere, when he was working with the NRA, and all of a sudden he just skyrocketed. And then you look at the bottom is, somebody gave us $1 million. We bought $1 million worth of views on Facebook or YouTube or whatever it was. iTunes, and we would be in the top 10. All of a sudden you start to get like, fake it, and then fake it. It's I've been trying to stand on Gina, and what's fascinating about this is this guy's a little bit all over this, but he also we were talking yesterday about how they don't understand how to interpret art or even entertainment in any way, and this is sort of fascinating. So what they're doing, this is what about the National Restraining Order, how a judge in New York should give a restraining order for a congressional district in Wyoming. Pause it for a second. When you pull up the clip of Dan Bongino saying this about every ruling that came out of the Fifth Circuit in Texas, basically, shot down, for half the country, the ability for women to get an abortion or mifepristone, or, I mean, we could go on and on and on, and how many of Biden's executive orders were shot down by one judge in Texas. What was that guy's name? Craig Kerzansky, or whatever his name is? I mean, Kaczmarek. I mean, give me a break. There is no clip of Bongino saying this because he never said it, guys. restraining orders. How a judge in New York can give a restraining order for a congressional district in Wyoming is ridiculous. Clarence Thomas has been warning about this forever. There's A-News on Twitter talking about this lawfare too. How this Obama-appointed judge threatened Trump and his team with arrest if they don't restore every dime of funding that have been paused or canceled. Folks, my recommendation is Donald Trump should ignore this. This judge is obviously not acting constitutionally at all. It should be ignored. The man is resuming up. You can't order the executive to spend. I mean, it effectively usurp the power of the executive. Now, before I get to the next Bongino doesn't probably have a copy of the Constitution there. I mean, he probably carries one around, but I have a feeling it's like just all written in Pig Latin.
Soaking whiskey.
Congress appropriates the money. The job of the president is to faithfully execute the laws that have been passed by Congress. If the law says expend $100 at this agency, the president doesn't have the ability to go, well, this is not the law. First of all, it's not the Constitution. It's not the law in terms of the 1974 Empowerment Control.
As President Trump and Elon Musk escalate plans to downsize the federal government, confusion about who has a job and who doesn't. NBC News obtaining an email trying to unfire employees at the National Nuclear Security Administration, saying in part, the termination letters for some NNSA probationary employees are being rescinded. Officials admitting they do not have a good way to get in touch with those personnel. Musk telegraphing last week that he could falter in his effort to crush fraud, waste, and abuse.
We are moving fast, so we won't make mistakes, but we'll also fix the mistakes very quickly.
The DOJ also terminating 20 immigration judges, including a Friday night firing of 18 recent hires, according to the union that represents them. Its president, citing a backlog of millions of cases, called the firings baffling and nonsensical. This all comes after thousands of layoffs across several federal agencies. Lawyer Kate Royce fired last week after 6 months at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
When you got that email, what went through your mind?
So I think my first emotion was grief, quickly followed by anger. I'm worried about paying rent in March. I'm worried about getting the health care that I need.
President Trump's speed to drastically reshape the government at home, matched only by the flurry of changes to U.S. policy abroad. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference warning that as the United States steps back from Europe, Europe needs to step up.
The old days are over when America supported Europe just because it always had.
President Trump blindsiding allies this week, revealing a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, announcing they agreed to begin negotiations to end the war in Ukraine.
Ukraine will never accept deals made behind our backs without our involvement.
Now, that phone call with Putin, President Trump, after that, he later promised Kyiv a seat at the table. This, as sources tell NBC News, the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff are set to start negotiations in Saudi Arabia toward peace between Russia and Ukraine. Willie?
Aaron Gilchrist with the president in West Palm Beach. Aaron, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget you can catch the Today Show every morning on
I also have no doubt that you'll be a voice of clarity and courage on the world stage for the values that we in Israel, you in America hold dear, values of freedom for all those who cherish liberty. You're already doing that. I want to tell you that it's heard loud and clear here and everywhere else. Today, Secretary Rubio and I had a very productive discussion with our staffs on a number of issues. None of them are more important than Iran. Israel and America stand shoulder to shoulder in countering the threat of Iran. We agreed that the Ayatollahs must not have nuclear weapons. And we also agreed that Iran's aggression in the region has to be rolled back. Over the last 16 months, Israel has dealt a mighty blow to Iran's terror axis. Under the strong leadership of President Trump and with your unflinching support, I have no doubt that we can and will finish the job. We also spoke a great deal about Gaza. I thank Secretary Rubio for President Trump's assistance in helping us secure the release of another 3 hostages yesterday. These are hostages that Hamas refused to support only a few days earlier. And I also thanked him for America's unequivocal backing for Israel's policy in Gaza in moving forward. I want to assure everyone who's now listening to us.
Why do we have to be so linked with Israel? I've always found it to be kind of odd that we have such a strong alliance with Israel, but we don't have. It seems like we have like these like very tenuous, weird relationships with like Canada and with Mexico. Because like logically, it would make sense to me, like for us to have like a much closer relationship with Mexico, especially considering like how much like economic interplay there is. It feels like it's isn't that weird? Yeah, it is.
President Trump and I are working on six efforts. We have a common strategy.
Dancing in the wind.
Make sure you
That's right. They gave it to Paul. Wow. That's a lot.
Closing in.
Israel is determined to achieve all the goals set which is that Hamas and its political leader in Gaza. All of us as Israel, and we can ensure that Gaza is ready political support of the states and Gaza will let us achieve the objective of Gaza. Secretary I discussed President Trump's bold vision for Gaza.
I think the logic is that Israel is a base of operations and that helps the U.S. maintain Western influence in the Middle East in a way that's like native to that area. Like that's what I hear a lot of people say. Now, again, you could say that you don't think it's worth it, you think that's a bad idea, etc. But like if you ask somebody, that's a very, very common talking point.
For Gaza's future, how we can work together to ensure that that future becomes a reality. We also discussed the situation in Syria after the collapse of Assad's regime, a collapse that was made possible by Israel's weakening of Iran's terror axis, especially the weakening of Hezbollah, the removal of Israel. For over a decade before October 7th, Israel acted to prevent Iran from developing new terror fronts against us in Syria, right opposite the Golan Heights and deeper in Syria. And we conducted hundreds of airstrikes, perhaps 1,000, in order to prevent it. And we did. Now, if any other force in Syria today believes that Israel will permit other hostile forces to use Syria as a base of operations against us, they are gravely mistaken. Israel will act to prevent any threat from emerging near our border in southwest Syria. Secretary Israel is committed to the ceasefire standards that were reached in November. We expect the government of Lebanon to be equally committed to their fulfillment. The scenes we saw this weekend in Peru, our beautiful forces being attacked by Hezbollah, this was not encouraging. That everyone refers to.
I think that they need to look at why these terrorist groups keep coming up. And I feel like this is like a big issue is that I think that you, like, I mean, unless you're going like full on, like all, you think it's just Iran? Iran is just spawning all of these terrorist groups? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think it, like, I like, that just seems too simplistic to me. Yeah, it is Iran, but...
As a good night should.
17 or not, 17 or not, well, they must be fully influenced. Hezbollah must be disarmed. Israel will prefer it. Let the next army do that job. But once Israel will do what it has to do, enforce the understanding of the ceasefire and our security. The Secretary and I also discussed how the many international institutions have been hijacked and turned into anti-American, anti-Israeli. We see that in the UN. Anti-Americanism is rampant, and more resolutions are passed about Israel than any the rest of the world combined. The warfare that is being waged against America and Israel, the ICC, the ICJ, and others, the ICC is about relentlessly dividing issues of less wars based on utter lies.
I don't want on him. I'm pretty sure.
Stop right there!
Freeze! Israel is not accepting the jurisdiction of the ICC. It's not accepting the courts.
Yeah, they designate
Israel commands President Trump and his administration for restoring this executive order against the ICC and for moving quickly to sanction ICC officials. The Secretary and I discussed working together to find a common strategy to deal with the threat of war and neutralize this threat once and for all. So these are some of the issues we discussed today. Maybe are not many. We can say that the Middle East today has many opportunities, many challenges. I have no doubt that working together, America and Israel will overcome the challenge and seize the opportunity. I have to say that I'm under President Trump's leadership, working together with you, Secretary of
Stop right there!
next days of our lives will be ready to come. Welcome to Jerusalem.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. It is an honor to be back here. I've been here many times before as an American visiting and then so the United States Senate, but now for the first time as Secretary of the United States, and it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to serve the story of President Donald Trump. As you accurately stated, Mr. Prime Minister, there's a tremendous help to a stronger ally for Israel in the White House. President Trump. He's also a man that speaks clearly and unambiguously, and makes clear his views on issues. First, he's made clear, as he pointed out, hostages need to come home, they need to be released, and he works in very close coordination with him. He's working in very close coordination with the Prime Minister and his government, and ensuring that it's not optional. And that's a goal we share in common, and that is something we work on very closely together.
Do not attempt to resist.
The President's also been very bold about his view of what the future for Gaza should be. Now, if there's the same tired ideas of the past and something that's new and bold, and something that frankly took courage and vision to figure it out, and it may have shocked and surprised many, but what cannot continue is the same cycle where we repeat over and over again back at the exact same place. That has been very clear. Hamas cannot continue as a military or government force. And frankly, as long as it stands as a force that can govern, or as a force that can administer, or as a force that can threaten by use of violence, peace becomes impossible. They must be eliminated. It must be eradicated. On the
This is I feel stupid they have time to side with Netanyahu, but turn their back to Zelensky. The reason why is like we have like more treaties with like that's the reason why. I think that's the main reason. Like Ukraine is not our ally. Yeah, I mean that's a big reason.
Broader issues that we discussed as well is the question in Syria. And while the fall of Assad is certainly promising and important, it's Syria replacing one destabilizing force for another. It's not a positive development. And that is something that we will watch very carefully as we seek to craft our own strategies regarding our approach to events in Syria. With Kings of Lebanon, our goals are aligned and the same. A strong Lebanese state that can take on and disarm Hezbollah. The common theme in all of these challenges is Iran. It is the single greatest source of instability in the region. Behind every terrorist group, behind every act of violence, behind every destabilizing activity, behind everything that threatens peace and stability for the millions of people who call this region home, it's Iran. And by Iran, I mean the Ayatollahs. By Iran, I mean its regime. A regime who, by the way, its people don't support. The people of Iran are victims of that regime. And so I think it's important to constantly point that whether we talk about Hamas, or we talk about Hezbollah, or we talk about violence in the West Bank, or we talk about destabilization in Syria, or we talk about any of these issues, the militias in Iraq, they all have behind them one common theme: Iran. And that must be addressed. And there can never be a nuclear Iran. A nuclear Iran that could then hold itself immediately from pressure and from action. That can never happen. The President's been clear about that as well. And so I close where I began by reiterating our strong support for our allies, very close allies and partners here in Israel. To the people of this great country, whom we have tremendous love and respect for everything you're facing, have faced, and continue to face. It's an extraordinary story of bravery. A nation founded in the ashes and in the aftermath of a horrifying crime against humanity. Stood from its very inception, from the very day of its birth, against threats
Somebody got a hold of Trump's account and made him post a Napoleon quote. They're really leaning into the dictatorship aesthetic, huh? He who saves his country does not violate any law. Now, again, this isn't Trump. When has Trump ever talked like this? It's I don't know. It's Peter Thiel, it's Elon, it's someone. It's probably not Elon either. It's someone, I don't know. Vance. It might be Vance. It reeks of Miller. My guess is Miller or Vance. It's not in all caps, so it can't be Trump. I think it's Miller or Vance. I don't think it's Elon either, because I don't think Elon even knows this quote. Vance was saying similar things just 2 days ago. Yeah, my bet is on Vance or Miller. Probably Vance. It's not great, huh? What am I supposed to say? It's not great, you know? It's less than ideal. They're really leaning in. Where's the White House tweet from the White House account where, hold on, Twitter, White House, where they superimposed that quote over his mugshot? Is this good, chat? Chat, is this good? Even in his replies, his fans don't like this. Well, I don't think that's true. Dude, they are using his mugshot for everything, man. They are forcing this so hard. Look at this. They're using his damn... Oh, wait, that's not the mugshot. That's just the same Rizzler pose. That's his official portrait. They put his mugshot... It's surprising how similar they are. Or maybe it's not surprising. That's not his mugshot. I might actually have them confused. His mugshot was seen in the one meeting room in the White House. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm sorry, I'm stupid, yes. The mugshot, they framed his mugshot right outside the Oval Office. It's in the hallway, right outside the door, you know? So its face is in, so he can see it all the time, which is very funny. He is trying to do the Rizzler stare with both of them. Oh, here it is, yeah. Yeah, it's the same, he's doing the same face, you know? He who saves his country does not violate any law. They're really pushing for it, you know? To me, that Twitter post was giving permission to his loyalists to commit hate crimes for him. Yes. Not to do the standard, this is what the Nazis did. But one of the biggest components in the early rise of the Nazis was loyalist judges would give free rein to brown shirts to do whatever they wanted, as long as they were doing it for Germany. They hated the Weimar Republic. They wanted another Reich. So the idea was, you might be violating the laws of the Republic, but the spirit of Germany you are carrying forward in your violent attacks, your murders, so on and so forth. Highly recommend going back to Dan Arrow's video about America's coming Weimar moment. It's a good video. It's a very good video. Yeah. Chat, I tried Googling this good faith question, what is the Weimar Republic? And Weimar is spelled with B-Y. Yako, that was hilarious. That was really good. Good one. Keep it up, sport. Who are these Nazi people? The administration is really leaning in on the dictatorial aesthetic. The funny thing to me, I guess, is that normally, okay, this is like a soy thing, okay? You know how when a trend initially emerges, it's in response to a need, and then later when people idealize the aesthetic that was born of that need, they start to replicate it insincerely, even though they no longer need to, or it's no longer natural to the moment. A good example of this would be that basically every conservative dresses and looks like shit, but they post AI photos of clean-cut men from the 50s with high-waisted trousers and really nice haircuts and clean-shaven faces. And then you see what they dress like, and like they'll post about how like back when men were men, and then you look at them in their life, and they're just the opposite of it in every conceivable sense, aesthetically and their lifestyle values and the way they live. They don't live in small-town America. They don't spend time with their family. Like there's no connection. It's just like an obsession with the aesthetic. Basically, the people who made this tweet, I still think it was J.D. Vance, the people who made this tweet and who are running this administration are pro-dictatorship. They're not just wannabe dictators, or maybe arguably currently dictators. They're pro the aesthetic of being a dictator. They're putting the aesthetic first. They're not arriving at dictatorship via the necessary means of obtaining power. They're thinking, how do dictators look? How would a dictator act? What's a cool quote a dictator would post? You know, what's like an epic post that a cool authoritarian leader would put out there before, like, you know, what would Iron Man say? You understand what I'm talking about, right? Like they're too self-conscious of the fact. They're not just doing the thing. If you take a look back at like historical dictatorships, and you can, you know, the Nazis or whatever else, Mussolini, but you can, you know, Pol Pot now. They did this sometimes. There were definitely times when they were, dare I say it, flora farming. But for the most part, the stuff they did was just a consequence of the historical moment. This, on the other hand, in my opinion, this is them approaching it from an aesthetics first perspective. They were literally thinking, what is a cool authoritarian thing I could tweet? You understand what I'm talking about? This is basically like the highest possible level of the guy who gets really into Roman statue aesthetics because he sees other Nazis doing it and he doesn't know why, but he does it because that seems to be the vibe. You're not arriving at this naturally. You know, you're just you're conforming to an aesthetic expectation. Trump would never tweet this. It's totally out of line with how he talks. Okay, but what difference does it make? It means they're self-conscious and unserious. It means that rather than these moves being made strategically in the pursuit of power, they're being made in the desire of replicating the aesthetic components of the power that they seek to have. In other words, putting the cart before the horse. I think it's another example of unseriousness. But he does want to sound like this, and that's important too. Here's an important thing you have to understand about Donald Trump. No, he doesn't. Donald Trump doesn't want to be an authoritarian. Donald Trump is an authoritarian because it's a way of satisfying a collection of class-based material interests that he has. A personal desire for the satisfaction of his egomania, you know, of his, whatever, narcissism. You can armchair psychiatrist it all you want. I don't really care. It's a desire to be popular. If you see how he acts in public, the man clearly just likes his rallies and his applause. Now, I'm not saying that venerates him in any way. I'm saying that he's not approaching this from from the aesthetic appreciation of dictatorial regimes first. J.D. Vance, on the other hand, totally different story. You know this guy is like soying out to, you know, we will rebuild the Roman Empire, etc., right? Even though that doesn't mean it. What does that mean? You're going to use what? Like unmixed limestone in your concrete? What do you mean by that? Pillars are back? You're going to build pillars? It doesn't mean anything. Really? Because Trump idealizes other dictators? Trump treats other dictators the way he treated other powerful business and real estate moguls back when he was just a New York City real estate mogul. Which is to say, he sees himself and them as powerful pieces on a big chessboard where with a little bit of shoulder rubbing, a little bit of accolades, he can get close to them, do a little bit of merging, a little acquisition, a little golf game, maybe their wife. This is a known element, you know? It's not really about liking them. Now, all of these, when applied to the running of a government, are fascistic. They emerge in a way that leads to fascistic governance. Because it tends to be populist-leaning, it's very, like, great man-centric, you know, the components fall into place. But most of what we're seeing here from this administration isn't Trump. Trump is just the front man. It's all the people around him. Trump's not making these decisions. He's just saying shit. You know? You understand what I'm talking about, right? It's very unserious. That's why Project 2025 was needed for this run and nothing as crazy happened in 2016. Yeah, to a large extent, yeah, 100%. Though the same types of people did try back in 2016. They just weren't as effective, which is why there was a revolving door in the Trump administration. So Trump isn't a fascist. Trump isn't an ideological fascist. Trump isn't waking up and thinking, I will make those subservient to the state. I will administrate the state as like an extension of the body politic. People are cogs in the machinery of the state. Like it's incidental. He doesn't wake up and think of fascist theory or whatever. It's just a byproduct of who he is as a person, of his psychoses, his neuroses, which is different from people again like J.D. Vance. And to a large extent, Elon Musk. Though honestly, Elon is so stupid, it's genuinely kind of difficult to fully pin down. I mean, he's certainly a Nazi, or at least highly sympathetic to Nazis. But it's difficult to pin down exactly how aware he is of what he believes. I'm running again into the Sargon of Akkad problem, where sometimes people are so dumb that you don't know if they know what they believe at all. I hope they keep posting shit like this. It's soy. It stirs up the media, which I'm sure they think is to their benefit, but I don't think it serves their interests. You know, I just don't think it does. If you give it away too easy, you give the game away, man. Like the index, inflation's already rising. Okay, there are going to be consequences. Where are my damn eggs? It's like a copy paste statement from the early 1900s. If you really can. Well, it's literally in the poll. So, opinion on the Nina Turner tweet? Well, I'm glad she's having fun. You're not going to get Republicans, at least not very far gone Republicans, on hypocrisy because they just don't care. So I don't know how effective it is in changing minds, but you know, it's good to reply guy while you can, right? Saw something about wholesale eggs being over $8 a dozen now. Insane. The dumbass Law and Order quote from Napoleon. No! The USA just country is not violating law. That one, not Law and Order. 760 where I live. Yeah, okay, but keep in mind, a lot of grocery stores are literally selling eggs at a loss right now. Like, they're hoping they'll make back the profit because you buy other stuff at the grocery store. But a lot of grocery stores are selling them at a loss. They lose money every time they sell eggs. They're loss leaders even without the current situation, apparently. Really? Even normally? Interesting. Maybe we just shouldn't eat eggs. Not really an egg guy myself.
In terms of reality, I'm gay married, right? Like, what is the point of this conversation? Because
you're not really married.
I'm sorry. I'm going to outright call you fascist.
Oh, no.
And say that what you're saying is hate speech.
I have XX chromosomes, Michael.
You have XX chromosomes?
Yeah, would you call me Cheerio?
I don't. I'll defer to you. Hello, I'm Michael Knowles. I'm a conservative podcast host at the Daily Wire. I'm an author, and I'm a cigar salesman at Mayflower Cigars. And today, I am surrounded by 20 LGBTQ plus activists. My first claim is that there is no such thing as same-sex marriage.
Wow. Nice to meet you.
How are you, sir? Nice to see you.
Doing well. So your claim, what's the underlying philosophy of your claim?
Well, I guess the underlying historical part of my claim is that everyone for all of history everywhere until, and I'm being generous, 2001, agreed with my view that there's no such thing as same-sex marriage. So it seems to me that marriage intrinsically requires sexual difference. And furthermore, I think that any claim that marriage could be redefined to include same-sex marriage would render the term marriage incomprehensible.
Would you say that this is based off of natural law and how Thomas Aquinas defines natural law?
There's a good natural law argument for it, but I think it's based on more than that.
It's more than
but based on anthropology.
Well, then would you say that marriage is a set of legal rights, or is it a social rule?
I think marriage is an institution. I think it's the fundamental political institution. I think, getting back to classical philosophy,
of course,
that man is fundamentally a social animal. So, I think that the bedrock of politics is the unit of the family, and, of course, intrinsic to the family is marriage.
But all of those, especially with natural law, is just an assertion without evidence to back that claim, in that we see marriage over time in various cultures has been different things.
In which cultures would you say you see same-sex marriage?
I did not say same-sex marriage particularly, but the role of it when it comes to family, when it comes to the condition. So we also say that if somebody is lawfully married, especially in the eyes of the church, they cannot be divorced and then remarried again.
Well, I oppose divorce and remarriage, but I'm making a more modest claim than that. I'm just saying that at its core, marriage necessarily involves to different sexes.
Well, how would you prove that? Because all the natural law is just this assertion. I can just as easily say the opposite in that marriage is set up with legal
You keep
rights.
bringing up natural law. I'm actually speaking even more basically. I love natural law, but I'm speaking even more basically than that. It seems to me that the only way that marriage could have a meaning is if it involves different sexes.
But once again, you're defining that meaning. What marriage essentially is a set of rights conferred from two spouses when it comes to inheritance, when it comes to the rights of the children, when it comes to a number of about 1,100 federal and state rights.
Okay, then what you're getting at is interesting and might help us move forward. How would you define marriage?
I would say marriage is a legal contract between individuals when it comes to a set of property laws, when it comes to family law, when it comes to children, and many other rights that are conferred. And we do see that those rights have been conferred to members of the same sex. And so say that same-sex marriage does not exist.
Will you say that marriage entails rights pertaining to children? Well, two men cannot create a child.
But neither can infertile couples. And neither can... There are a number of couples that cannot have children.
Sure, so infertility sometimes occurs, and that's
and so does gay marriage.
Well, no, gay marriage cannot occur. I guess...
But you're asserting that without proof. We see that it does happen. In that,
no, it doesn't.
We mean marriage.
You could say that there's such a thing as a square ball. You could say that, but a square ball doesn't belong to section.
Would you agree that people have been lawfully wedded in the eyes of the government, and those two parties are members of the same sex?
No, I'm saying that isn't possible. So laws can assert all
sorts of things. Well, you're asserting that without
proof. Well, like the law could say that a black person isn't a human being. But that wouldn't be true. That wouldn't make it true.
But once again, when we get into this Aristotelian view of the world, that's an assertion. Would you agree?
You're bringing up Aristotle. I don't know. I'm not bringing up Aristotle.
Well, we say like that Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, in the traditional view of the magisterium of the Catholic Church, are a view that you use to base your worldview off of.
I am Catholic, but marriage actually even predates the church. So I guess my view is your definition of marriage seems to get a little muddled. You say it's a legal arrangement of family, but to say that marriage is a legal arrangement pertaining to family is circular. Of course it's a legal arrangement pertaining to children. What is it? When you say it's an arrangement that pertains to children, you're saying, okay, now we're getting closer because only a man and a woman can produce a child, in principle. Now, of course, some couples are infertile, but just because, a human being, let's say, loses an arm doesn't mean that human beings only have one arm, or maybe like three of them. We're discussing what the component.
And that necessary component doesn't come from it.
No. Well, I'll give you my definition of marriage.
Absolutely.
I think marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman ordered toward the procreation and education of children, and as a secondary matter for the mutual support of the spouses.
Well, once again, when we say ordered towards, is to look at the world with these preconceived notions about things.
I'm not preconceiving anything. I'm just observing nature as it is. No, I'm just observing nature, and I'm saying that that's what marriage is.
Well, just observing nature, we see that there are same-sex couples. So if we are observing.
No, I'm not saying there can't be same-sex couples. I'm just saying there can't be same-sex marriage.
Are there same-sex individuals that have entered into a legal contract that the state recognizes as a marriage?
Sometimes the state gets things wrong, as I am arguing.
But is that a yes? So there are couples of the same sex that have been wedded in the eyes of the state.
Since 2015, the U.S. government pretends that two men can be married to each other.
We say sense of that nothing. You're basing that off of nothing.
No, I'm basing it off of the Obergefell decision from the Supreme Court. They're pretending. They're acting as if two men can marry.
According to you?
No, according to the Supreme Court and the Obergefell decision.
We keep using pretend as if things exist outside of the institutions that we make.
I'm just saying the word has a meaning, and I gave you a very clear definition of what I think it means and what statistically everyone for all of human history everywhere has thought it means. And you've given me this kind of jumbled description that keeps contradicting itself. And that's my whole point, is I think it is not possible to define marriage. I have nothing against two fellas.
According to who?
Prove me wrong.
Prove you wrong. Once again, are there couples in the U.S. that have entered into a covenant that society views as marriage?
Well, some people in society view it as marriage, but many do not.
But you aren't the ones conferring rights to society.
Right, but I don't think that the government dictates reality. I think that if the government came out, passed a law, and said that human beings are people with 3 heads and 17 arms and octopus tentacles, and so we decree the U.S. government, that wouldn't make it true.
But who defines marriage? Nice one.
A pleasure to meet you.
Close. Hey, good to meet you, Mindy.
Mindy, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, my name's Mason.
Mason.
Meet you. Yeah.
I'm Michael.
Oh, gotcha. Wait, do you have a birth certificate?
Not on me, but I do have one.
Okay, well, I can't confirm that your name's Michael until I see that birth certificate just as a defender of objective truth. But we can go more into the prompt speaking about marriage.
You could actually, if you have faculties of reason and you say, well, this is the sort of fellow who presents himself, in a credible way, and you've probably checked with the producers here, they've probably verified that I am who I am. So a reasonable person would be able to know who I am.
That is more performative characteristics? Is that what you're implying? Is that I'm able, with my faculty of reason, to assume that I'm speaking with the man in front of me? And therefore I can just politely go with the name that you're presenting to me, almost as an act of respect?
No, I just think that I wouldn't have gotten in this building if I weren't really who I say I am. So
okay, gotcha.
That would be my deduction.
Well, bringing back to the prompt, going back to specifically same-sex marriage, you argued from an anthropology? That's like your basis of...
Yeah, men and women are different, and marriage involves one of each. Yeah.
What specific culture are you referring to? Because we have so many cultures that have communal relationships in which people are raised. When you said in the act of procreation, have you ever heard of it takes a village to raise kids?
But
I don't think that's just a saying.
No, I didn't
say
that.
Happens literally in specific cultures.
No, but when I say procreation, that's the act of creating a child. And usually there aren't 3 or 4 people involved in that. It's usually 2 people.
Yeah, but even those people that do create the child, oftentimes were referred to as different genders depending on the culture that it is that you're observing.
Which cultures are you referring to?
We could talk about the Mayans. We could talk about certain Amazonian cultures. I recognize that they're not Western cultures, so you might not prioritize them, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist.
What was their... Well, they no longer exist, the Mayans.
Oh, right, because of colonialism. I'm glad that you're just...
But what was their view of gender? What specific gender is
that's specifically a social characteristic that we're all performing in right now. I mean, you can't say...
No, I'm not asking your opinion. I'm asking what... You brought up the Mayans. What did the Mayans think?
That's just something that is...
But what did the Mayans think? You brought it up. You seem so confident about this. What did the Mayans think about marriage and gender?
We can talk about difference in the way that they are recognized.
Can we? I don't know that you know the difference. You said there was a difference, but you haven't explained how there was a difference. And I think this is what people do.
Wait, is this prompt specifically on the Mayan anthropology?
Okay, I'm trying to drill down. Just when you say there are different understandings of marriage throughout history and time and space, I say, okay, maybe that's possible. How? Tell me. Point to the examples. And you said, well, the Mayans. And I said, okay, well, what did the Mayans think about marriage? And you don't have an answer. And none of these people have answers because everyone has... Do you have an answer?
People can look up right now. If you're right near a Google. Yeah, exactly. Michael's trying to hold me down on trivia night right now.
No, I'm just asking you to explain.
Talk about specifically our examples.
I'm asking you to explain the point that you brought up. And so what people usually do is they say, well, look,
For the last 48 hours, I've been investigating the Argentinian meme coin disaster known as Libra. If you don't know, the president of Argentina posted publicly supporting this meme coin, and subsequently it has all crashed and people have wondered where the money is, with $100 million seeming to go missing. Now, I've been in touch with the key players in this, trying to get answers, and what you're about to hear is an hour-long interview with Hayden Davis, who is the main guy behind the launch and a lot of the token decisions. He currently sits with $100 million in his possession that he's trying to find out what to do with. You will discover through the course of this call that it is not the first time we've been talking. I have been trying to communicate with him for, as I said, the last 24 to 48 hours. And this is not the interview for, pushing from my view, because I wanted to get information. I feel like the biggest thing we're missing is answers. And so I was just listening a lot of this call. I do think we got some incredible admissions, but I wanted to say it's not my characteristic, scammer. And that was on my side. The guy was very skittish from the beginning, and so I didn't feel like that was an appropriate kind of reaction. Everyone's going to have their opinions on this guy either way, based on what you hear, but I thought a more neutral approach to letting this guy talk. It's the first time he's talked since he issued a statement on Twitter, a minute long. It wasn't received very well, so I wanted to give him the chance to kind of dump all the information out at once. The interview starts abruptly because he starts with some off-the-record stuff that I had to cut out. But yeah, hopefully this sheds some light on what's going on.
I'll just start. I can just start talking about certain things. One of the issues with Libra, and what we find...
I just want to know, can we consider this part on the record?
How fortunate.
Because I don't want to include the stuff about, all that kind of stuff. That's not, anyone's business. I appreciate you sharing that context. The Libra stuff is sort of the meat and potatoes.
I can do, like, the Libra stuff is fine. Like, the Libra stuff is fine.
Okay, go ahead.
So, like, one of the issues with Libra, right? I mean, there's so many details in this story, but one of the issues with Libra is when you launch on Meteor, right, and you're trying to avoid all these snipers. There's not like there's this whole context around like shitloads of insiders. That's not what's going on. What's going on is you have these. I don't know how they're doing it, but these expert snipers, like guys that are clipping 1.7, 2 million, 800,000, 1.2 million into the charts. And then what we have is on watches all these volumes you're like, fuck. This guy, like at one point, one of the top wallets, which for some reason still hasn't sold a bunch, I don't understand why, but had $57 million, right? And had a $5 billion market cap, or 4.5, which is what Libra was at. That's still going to crush the chart. It's not like that's $5 billion. It's not like that's $4.5 billion. So then you have to make a real-time decision where you're like, okay, do I pull some of the sides, do I swap some of the liquidity out to protect the floor, knowing that I know that there's more marketing plans coming? Or do I just let the chart get crushed, right? And that's what happens every single one of these launches. That's what happens, where it's like 3 to 10 guys get these massive jumps. They're not good snipers, right? They're all bad snipers. They're just looking to unload their whole position. You can't track it. You can't find it. It doesn't matter if you subpoena it. It doesn't, like, it takes forever. It doesn't work. And so every launch, right, this happens. Now, what happened with Libra specifically, which I'm happy to share, even though Javier and his team have told me that there's a pretty substantial interview coming tomorrow that'll be live on TV. I don't think that's like super publicly known, but like he's going to basically clear up A, me, and then B, Libra as the project, because he's obviously under scrutiny. But basically what happened was when it launched, our goal was, okay, can we collect enough liquidity, which again, people can say people are a piece of shit or not, but that goal was to connect enough liquidity, because Malay was going to do another video, and there were some other, I won't name them, but there were some other high-level people that were going to interact, post, etc., market the video, right? So our goal was, can we take enough liquidity off to get all the snipers out, or at least control them, so when the chart dips down, it's not going to crush the whole project. Have Malay do the second round of videos, and then inject all the capital back in, or at least the vast majority, and create like a mega Trump launch, basically. And I don't know, I still don't have answers on exactly what happened with why he took the post down. I'm assuming there's some extreme political pressure that he got, and he panicked. As somebody in his position, I would feel rightly so. I mean, he's not like a crypto native person. And then we've been working through like, okay, what can we do from here? But like, you know, people are saying this is a rug pull. Like, that's not objectively true. There's still like, there's what, 60 million on the bonding curve of liquidity that's locked, right? It's at 300 million market cap. Like, it's not a rug. It's a plan gone miserably wrong with $100 billion sitting in the account that I'm the custodian of, but I'm not. I would love instruction on what to do with it. I don't. No desire to be public enemy number one of how to make this happen.